Oh, so they finally noticed you, hmm? Funny how the world ignores you when you're quiet, invisible, harmless. But the moment you start waking up, the moment you begin realizing your worth, your calling, your power, suddenly there's tension in the air. Suddenly whispers start crawling across the room like nervous little insects. Suddenly someone, somewhere feels threatened by you. Isn't that delightful? It means they see something you haven't fully seen in yourself yet. A spark, a threat, a destiny they wish belonged to them. Ah, threat, such a dramatic little word, isn't it? It slithers into the air the moment people sense something they can't quite name, but absolutely feel. You ever notice how no one worries about the silent, the weak, the predictable? No one flinches at a pawn, but the second a pawn starts thinking like a king. Oh, suddenly everyone gets nervous. Suddenly you're too much, too confident, too different. They don't say you're rising, they say you're changing. They don't say you're powerful, they say you're dangerous. Funny how truth always hides behind fear. People don't resist you because you're wrong. They resist you because you're waking up. And waking souls are terrifying things, see. Destiny doesn't activate quietly. It hums, it cracks the air, it vibrates in your bones like something ancient remembering itself. And people around you feel it too, even if they pretend they don't. They feel the shift, the unsettling buzz of transformation. You start seeing the world sharper, speaking differently, thinking bigger, and suddenly those who felt comfortable, towering over you, don't feel so tall anymore. Power does that. Even before it fully arrives, it casts a shadow first. And you, my friend, have started casting one. They don't try to remove you because you're weak. Weak things are easy. They step on those without a second thought. No, they try to remove you because they feel you growing sharp edges. They feel your silence thickening, your presence intensifying, your vision stretching far beyond what they ever expected from someone like you. And nothing terrifies people more than someone who was once beneath them, becoming someone they can't control, can't predict, can't belittle anymore. Ah, now that is delicious. You think they're pushing you out because you don't belong? That's the trick, the illusion, but the truth? They push you because they see you don't fit in the small box they built for you anymore. You started questioning things you used to swallow. You stopped applauding what didn't deserve applause. You stopped shrinking to keep the peace. Oh, that's when the panic sets in. They don't like when you grow without their permission. They don't like when you rise without needing their validation. And so they label you threat. They whisper, they plot, they pull strings like desperate puppeteers, watching their favorite doll cut its strings. Isn't it amusing how people try to kick you out the moment life tries to move you up? They think they're dismantling your path, when really they're confirming it. Destiny doesn't always knock politely. Sometimes it's disguised as rejection, as betrayal, as someone trying to shove you out of the room. But maybe you didn't belong in that room. Maybe that ceiling was too low. Maybe that space was too cramped for the kind of fire forming inside you. They're not kicking you out. They're unknowingly escorting you to the door of something bigger. And let's be honest. If you truly weren't a threat, they wouldn't waste a single breath on you. People don't fight what they don't fear. They don't target what doesn't matter. They don't plot against the powerless. What would be the point? The world only sharpens its knives for those who hold weight. And you, oh, you're starting to carry weight. That's why their smiles crack now. That's why you notice the tension in their compliments. That's why small comments suddenly feel laced with poison. They're not reacting to who you are. They're reacting to who you're becoming. You're not losing a place. You're being pushed into your placement. You weren't wrong for outgrowing them. They were wrong for believing you'd stay small forever. This friction you feel, it's proof that your presence disturbs the stagnant, proof that your spirit disrupts the lazy, proof that your potential is louder than your past. Threat doesn't come from ego, it comes from evolution, and evolution always terrifies those who refuse to move. So let them panic, let them whisper, let them try to shove you toward the exit. Destiny has funny timing. It waits until you're almost ready, then it brings the pressure, the rejection, the sudden shift that forces you forward. They think they're removing you, but they're crowning you without realizing it. They're announcing your rise while trying to prevent it. They're confirming your chosen path by attempting to block it. Some doors don't close because you failed. They close because you were never meant to enter crawling when you were born to walk in standing tall. Rejection. What a dramatic little performance everyone takes so personally. People hear no, feel a door close, watch a circle tighten without them, and suddenly they think the universe has turned against them. They slump, they pout, they let insecurity chew at their ribs, but they never stop to question the timing, the placement, the precision of it all. They don't see the invisible hand rearranging pieces behind the curtain. They forget that sometimes the stage must go dark before the spotlight hits the right face. They forget that not every exit means exile. Sometimes it means elevation. Opposition doesn't always come to stop you. Sometimes it comes to steer you. Isn't it interesting how life refuses to let you stay where you don't belong? It nudges, then it pushes, and if you ignore the push, it shoves. And oh, how offended people get by a shove. They think it's failure. They think it's loss. They think the world is laughing at them, pointing fingers, whispering in corners. But imagine how small life would have kept you if it always let you stay comfortable. Imagine how many dreams would rot if every place you sat let you stay sitting. People don't move when they feel safe. They move when they feel cornered. They rise when they're denied ease. They transform when comfort stretches thin and snaps. You ever notice how the harshest exits always lead to the most unexpected doors? The job you needed until they let you go. The group you begged to stay in until they made it clear you were never really theirs. The person you clung to until life peeled their fingers off your future. At first it stings. Oh, it burns like betrayal dipped in salt. But then, eventually, the dust clears and something new peeks through. Something bigger, something that was waiting all along but needed the space only rejection could create. The chosen don't get escorted gently. They get ejected violently. Destiny doesn't always come wrapped in silk. Sometimes it arrives in the form of a slammed door that echoes through your bones. And how poetic that is. The world mistakes this for defeat, but defeat is loud and final. This is quieter, sharper, strategic. It's life whispering. Too small for you here. Time to grow. But people cling anyway. They cling to places they've outgrown, like children clutching toys they no longer play with. They mistake familiarity for belonging. You weren't meant to rot in rooms that no longer recognize your worth. You weren't meant to shrink so someone else could stay comfortable. When people start treating you differently, colder, shorter, quietly resentful, it's not always because you did something wrong. Sometimes it's because you're doing something right. Growth has a smell. Awakening has a weight. Rising has a vibration. And oh, how those vibrations irritate the stagnant. They feel it. Even if they pretend they don't, they sense your trajectory, shifting, your spirit sharpening, your energy refusing to dim. And the insecure don't clap for evolution. They react to it. Let them react. Let them distance themselves. Let them whisper. Let them form circles too small for you. They're not pushing you down. They're pushing you forward. They don't even realize they're working for your path. There's a funny trick the universe plays. When someone tries to hold you back past your time, life takes you anyway. And often takes something from them too, because resistance that comes against the chosen never wins. It only exposes itself. Opposition isn't a stop sign. It's a spotlight. It's life saying, pay attention. Something is shifting, but you won't notice if you're busy crying over doors that were never built strong enough to hold you. You were meant to step into spaces that fear can't breathe in, places where small minds can't follow and loud mouths finally fall silent. You think you're being rejected. You're actually being recognized. The universe doesn't fight for the ordinary. It wrestles only with those marked for more so when pressure rises and people push back and environments tighten like a throat holding a scream. Don't wilt. Don't question your worth. Lean in. Smile, even. Because they didn't oppose you when you were harmless. They didn't shut doors when you were quiet. They didn't whisper when you were still asleep. They only moved against you when destiny began to move for you. Opposition isn't rejection, it's relocation. A gentle, disguised hand steering you to a place where your presence won't just fit, it will reign envy. Now that's a delicious little poison, isn't it? Silent, subtle, dressed in smiles and casual comments, yet so sharp it could slice marble. People rarely admit they feel it. Oh no, envy never walks in announcing itself. It tiptoes. It grins. It pretends to compliment while calculating your steps, your dreams, your rise. You don't even have to be at the top yet. Envy starts breathing heavy the moment you start climbing, the second you stop crawling and dare to stand. Someone somewhere starts clutching their little world tighter because your growth reminds them of their stagnation. Your awakening exposes their sleep, and nothing bothers insecure souls like someone who suddenly refuses to stay beneath them. Funny, isn't it? They didn't hate you when you were quiet, small, obedient to the script. Back then, you were adorable, harmless, even comforting. As long as you doubted yourself, they felt safe. But the minute you start believing in yourself, the minute your back straightens and your voice deepens, the minute you decide you deserve more than leftovers and crumbs, suddenly the air shifts. Their tone changes. Their eyes watch you longer than necessary. Their jokes feel heavier. Their silence feels loaded. They don't hate your ambition. They hate what it reveals about their lack of it. People don't envy what they don't recognize. Remember that. They don't envy the weak. They don't envy the lost. They don't envy those who blend in. They envy the spark, the hint of power, the trace of destiny, the audacity of someone who decides to rise. They look at you and see possibility, one third possibility, the one they never chased. And rather than confront their laziness, their fear, their wasted potential, they stare at you like a mirror they want to shatter, because breaking you feels easier than admitting they betrayed themselves. Oh, pay attention to how they speak when you share your plans. Watch their eyebrows, their fake sympathy, that little breath they take before saying, "Are you sure?" Or maybe tone it down, or "People like us don't." Ah, yes, that one's a classic. People like us. One translation: stay small with me so I don't feel alone in my failure. They dress their envy in concern, in advice, in caution. But underneath, it's a trembling fear. What if you really do become what they never could? And some, they won't say anything at all. Silence is envy's favorite costume. They watch you, lurk in the shadows of your progress, pretend they don't see. But oh, they see everything. They just hope if they stay quiet enough, maybe you'll stumble. Maybe you'll quit. Maybe life will humble you before they have to watch you rise. They don't clap because your victory would bruise their pride. You succeeding makes their excuses look ridiculous. But here's the part they never understand. Envy doesn't block chosen people. It fuels them. Every side eye, every whisper, every doubting laugh becomes a spark. Chosen souls don't crumble under jealousy, they sharpen. They learn to read energy, not words. They learn to protect their plans, move quietly, build in shadows until the reveal is too loud to ignore. You think a lion fears the growl of a mouse? Please, the envy around you isn't a threat, it's a temperature check. It tells you your presence is heating the room. You didn't come to fit in, you came to unsettle. Let them choke on their curiosity. Let them spiral in their private comparisons. Let them pretend they don't notice the glow getting brighter around you. You don't need applause from those who secretly study you. Their envy is proof you stepped out of their league. Whether they admit it or not, they don't dislike you. They hate the way you make them feel about themselves. And that is not your burden to carry one day. They'll tell stories about knowing you. I always believed in them. They'll lie, forgetting every smirk, every doubt, every attempt to shrink you. But by then, you'll be too far ahead to turn back and correct them. Envy is never about you. It's about who they could have been if they had your courage. And nothing haunts the insecure more than someone they underestimated, becoming someone they can no longer reach. Forced exits, life's rudest little miracles. People panic when they're pushed, when doors slam behind them, when comfort evaporates like mist at dawn. They clutch at the old like a drowning man clutching driftwood, screaming, "Why is this happening to me?" They never stop to realize that sometimes the universe doesn't wait for your permission to save you. Sometimes it rips you out of situations you were begging to stay in, not because you're unworthy, but because that room was too suffocating for the version of you that's coming. Most people won't move unless they're shoved. They pray for change, but cling to familiarity like a security blanket made of fear. They say they want growth, but growth demands space, discomfort, loss. You don't evolve in rooms built to keep you small, and life knows that. So when it sees you dragging your feet, when it sees you tolerating the bare minimum, when it notices you shrinking to fit someone else's vision, it pulls the trigger and closes the chapter for you. Harsh? Sure. Necessary? Always you think betrayal is punishment? Rejection is humiliation? Failure is failure? No, that's just the first layer. Peel deeper. Forced exits are one of life's greatest plot twists. They feel like eviction, but they are elevation disguised as chaos. You don't get pushed from a garden unless a kingdom is waiting. You don't get removed from tables where you struggle to fit unless there's a throne being carved with your name on it. People rarely leave comfort willingly, so destiny drags them out, kicking and questioning until they finally see the view from higher ground, and oh, how clumsy the process looks. Friends fall away, opportunities dry up, rooms grow cold. Suddenly you don't feel welcomed where you once felt chosen. It stings, it bruises, it confuses you, but pay attention. The very things you thought were holding you up were starting to sink you. You didn't lose a place, you were rescued from it. Being pushed out isn't the world closing down on you. It's the world clearing space ahead of you. Like pruning a branch, cutting away isn't cruelty. It's preparation. People often confuse comfort with belonging. They think longevity equals destiny. I've been here so long, how could it not be mine? Time doesn't validate a season. Sometimes you stay in a place long enough to forget it was only a stepping stone. And when stepping stones pretend to be final destinations, life kicks them out from under you, so you'll keep walking. You don't build a future by gripping the past. You build it by trusting that the ground disappearing beneath your feet is just making room for wings. Oh, and the ones who push you, the people who try to expel you, belittle you, replace you, they think they're getting rid of a threat. They don't realize they're releasing a force. They think exile is humiliation. It's actually liberation. They didn't break you. They freed you from the ceiling they hoped you'd never question. So let them congratulate themselves for removing you. Let them think they won. Chosen ones don't get blocked. They get redirected. And redirection always leads upward, whether they approve or not. What they meant for exclusion becomes your expansion. What they hoped would scatter, you actually awakens you. You ever notice your spirit gets louder when a door slams? Your fire burns hotter when someone tries to dim you? Forced exits don't shrink chosen people, they expose them. You don't rise because you're comfortable. You rise because you're thrown into unfamiliar space and forced to remember you were built for heights, not cages. Life doesn't push you out to punish you. It pushes you out when you've overstayed in places unworthy of your next chapter. And deep down, you felt it long before it happened. That whisper in your bones, that restless ache in your soul, that quiet knowing that you were meant for more, even when you couldn't explain it. The exit just came sooner than your courage did. And that's not failure. That's grace in disguise, ripping you from mediocrity before you drown in it. They didn't exile you. They released you before you realized your value, and one day when you're seated where you truly belong, when your voice carries weight, when your presence echoes, those same hands that pushed you out will tremble at the thought of what they once had access to and lost. Forced exits are the universe's polite way of saying, "Rise, you don't belong here anymore." Ah, the sweet sting of loss. People think pain is the enemy, like it's some uninvited intruder. But pain is a sculptor, a brutal one, sure, but oh, so efficient. It chisels away illusions, strips you down to the bone, shows you who you are when applause fades and familiar faces disappear. Nothing reveals truth like hurt does. When comfort melts and the world you trusted falls apart, suddenly you meet yourself without the spotlight, without the mask, without the borrowed confidence. That's where strength is born. In the rubble, not the throne. Everyone wants to feel chosen, adored, supported. Lovely fantasies, really. But life isn't a cozy fairy tale. It's a fire. And fire doesn't ask politely before it burns off what's weak. It takes, it destroys, it scorches. And then somehow in the ashes, You discover you're still breathing. Maybe trembling, maybe bleeding, but breathing nonetheless. That's the magic. That's the terrifying beauty of pain. It proves you're not as fragile as you feared. It shows you the parts of your self-comfort would have never allowed you to see people cling to attachments like they're lifelines. But sometimes they're just anchors pulling you under. Lovers, friends, habits, dreams you thought were yours forever. Gone in a blink. Life doesn't always wait for you to be ready to let go. It rips things out of your grip because you were gripping death, disguised as warmth. Oh, and how you scream, how you mourn, how you curse the timing, the injustice, the betrayal. Yet months later you look back and whisper, thank God that door closed when it did you learn more from being broken than you ever will from being praised. Praise cushions you, pain cracks you open, and through those cracks reality crawls in. You start to see people's true intentions, your own weaknesses, the lies you told yourself to feel secure. You stop pretending everything's fine. You stop begging for validation from those who never understood you. Pain forces honesty, raw, uncomfortable honesty, and an honesty, it liberates even when it hurts like hell. Look at anyone who ever rose beyond mediocrity. None of them got there smiling their way through soft moments. No. They walked through betrayal, disappointment, loneliness so crushing it made their bones ache. But instead of collapsing, they transformed. Pain isn't just a wound. It's a weapon. But only in the hands of those who decide to wield it instead of bleed beneath it. You either crumble or carve yourself into something unrecognizable, something unbreakable. People fear endings because endings feel like death. They think losing someone or something means losing themselves. Silly little illusion, isn't it? The truth is, pain doesn't kill the real you. It kills the version of you that was too small, too naive, too dependent on others to define your worth. You don't lose yourself in pain, you shed yourself like skin, like chains, like illusions of who you thought you had to be loved or accepted. What remains afterward, that's your true face, and oh, how quiet it gets after heartbreak. No cheering crowds, no comforting voices, just silence. Silence sharp enough to cut, but in that silence something stirs. You start hearing your own voice. The one drowned out by noise, expectations, and gentle lies. Pain gives you solitude, and solitude gives you identity. You stop trying to be understood and start trying to be undeniable. Their absence becomes your power source. Their doubt becomes the echo that fuels your rise. Funny thing about being hurt. At first, it feels like death. Then slowly, subtly, it becomes rebirth. You don't return to who you were. You can't. That version of you is gone forever. And that's the point. Pain doesn't hand you back your old life. It pushes you toward a life you never would have reached otherwise. You build new strength, new vision, new boundaries. You stop begging to be included and start observing who deserves to stand near you. You don't chase. You choose. Let them think they wounded you beyond repair. Let them smirk, whisper, vanish. Pain isn't humiliation, it's recalibration. Every scar becomes a map, every tear a testament. Pain forces evolution, and evolution, it never asks permission. It just happens violently, beautifully, necessarily, because there comes a moment when what once comforted you begins to poison you, and life refuses to let the chosen die inside comfort. So yes, pain breaks you, but only so you can discover the pieces worth rebuilding. Only so you can understand that suffering wasn't the punishment. Staying the same would have been the real tragedy, revenge. Such a delicious little spark in the mind, isn't it? The fantasy of watching every person who underestimated you choke on their doubt, swallow their arrogance, tremble when your name drips into their ears like a warning. You see, when someone tries to kick you out, push you aside, erase your existence as if you're a mistake on their paper, it stings, it burns, it insults something deep inside, not your ego, no, much deeper, your destiny, your purpose. They think they're powerful enough to remove you from a story that wasn't theirs to write. Isn't it hilarious? People with tiny minds and trembling insecurities thinking they can play God for a moment, and at first, there's fury, that shaking, teeth-gritting fury. You feel your chest tighten, your breath sharpen, your thoughts twist. You want to scream, you want to smash doors, you want to shove the truth into their faces so hard their teeth rattle. You want to show them who they just picked a fight with. But revenge, real revenge, doesn't come from rage. Rage is sloppy, impulsive, loud. Rage burns fast and leaves you cold. No, real revenge comes from silence, from patience, from evolution. You don't strike when you're angry, you strike when you're transformed. You don't make them regret pushing you out. You become someone they could never reach, even if they beg to pull you back. You don't respond to humiliation with chaos. You respond with reinvention. See, the sweetest revenge isn't shouting, "Look at me now." The sweetest revenge is them realizing you no longer look back at all. Their existence becomes irrelevant while your life becomes inevitable. That's punishment, that's justice, not fire, elevation. And the funny thing is, they expect your collapse. They sit there secretly hoping you'll break, crumble, disappear into bitterness so they can feel justified. See, they were never meant to be here. They whisper to themselves to soothe the guilt gnawing at their conscience. They're terrified you'll rise, because if you rise, then their decision, their betrayal, becomes the greatest mistake of their life. And mistakes haunt people far more than enemies ever do. They watch you in silence, They may pretend they've moved on, pretend they don't care, pretend you were insignificant. But they watch, they peek, they stalk from shadows because they need to know, did they destroy you or did they create something they could never contain? And every time you grow, every time you improve, every time you breathe without needing them, they die a little inside. Not because you hurt them, but because they failed to stop you. That's real revenge, not vengeance with fists, not retaliation with insults, not petty victories or angry rants. Real revenge is outlasting them, outgrowing them, outshining the prison they tried to bury you in. They wanted to evict you from opportunity? Fine. Build your own palace. They wanted to silence you? Fine. Speak so loudly with your success that their denial becomes background noise. They wanted you forgotten? Fine, become unforgettable. Not because you need to prove anything, but because destiny has better taste than they do. Revenge isn't violence, it's evolution. It's the quiet refusal to be defined by the hands that tried to push you down. It's looking at the universe and saying, they tried to replace me, but I replace myself with something greater. It's rising so far above their fear that they can't even recognize you anymore. Not the wounded version they thought they defeated, the reborn version that scares them. Nothing terrifies those who kick you out more than realizing they were never your gatekeepers. They didn't exile you. They freed you. They didn't remove you. They revealed you. Every shove only teaches you how to stand taller. Every betrayal sharpens your vision. Every rejection tightens your resolve. And the world watches. Because when someone is pushed out unfairly, fate has a habit of pulling them back in grander than before, not to prove the rejectors wrong, but to prove destiny right. Oh, vengeance loses its thrill when you realize this. Becoming unstoppable is punishment enough. They will see you again, not because you chase them, but because greatness echoes, and their guilt has ears. They don't get to forget you. They don't get to rewrite the ending. They don't get to be free of the consequences of pushing out someone fate handpicked. Let them laugh now. Let them mock now. Let them celebrate early. Time is patient. Success is slow and merciless. And when it arrives for you, it won't tap their shoulder. It'll slap them awake. The very people who tried to shove you out will someday whisper, "We should have held on when we had the chance." Ah, fear, it's funny, isn't it? You think you're the one trembling, questioning, wondering if you deserve the space you're trying to step into. But here's the twist. The real shaking isn't happening in your chest. It's happening in theirs. The ones who tried to push you out, the ones who smirked, rolled their eyes, whispered behind your back, acted like your dreams were too big for your body. They didn't attack you because you were weak. They attacked you because somewhere inside, they saw something unsettling, a flicker, a force, a threat. People don't fear the loud, they fear the destined. And the moment they sensed your calling, even before you fully sensed it yourself, their hands started shaking behind their smiles. Funny how humans behave when confronted with potential. They don't want to admit it. They'll say you're reckless, delusional, too much, not enough. They'll paint your confidence as arrogance, your silence as weakness, your effort as desperation. Oh, they'll try so hard to make you doubt yourself. Why? Because if you ever stop doubting, if you ever believed fully in what you carry, you'd become untouchable. And nothing terrifies people more than someone they can't manipulate anymore. You want to know the real joke? While you're busy wondering, why are they against me? They're busy thinking, what if they surpass me? That's the root. That's the truth they'll never confess. They don't fear your present. They fear your future. You're not dangerous because of who you are right now. You're dangerous because of who you might become. That's why they try to kick you out early, crush you before you understand yourself, silence you before your voice finds its power. Not because you're weak, but because you're waking up and awake souls. They don't stay small for long. They saw something in you glowing beneath the surface: ambition, purpose, resilience, a stubborn little flame that refuses to die out no matter how many storms you walk through. And that terrifies people who have settled for their cages. Those who quit on themselves can't stand watching someone who refuses to quit. It threatens their excuses. Your existence alone becomes a mirror they can't look into for too long without feeling the sting of their own surrender. So they push, they shove, they try to tighten the space until you choke. They create noise hoping to drown out your inner voice. They toss doubt like crumbs and expect you to feed on it. But what they don't understand is this: pressure doesn't break chosen ones. It sharpens them. Challenges don't crush you, they reveal the steel in your bones. And irony has a wicked sense of humor, doesn't it? Because the more they feared you and tried to contain you, the more they trained you. The more they buried you, the more they fertilized you. They weren't holding you down, they were unknowingly preparing you. And here's the part they'll never admit. Deep down they respect you. Oh yes, envy always wears the mask of insult. Fear always disguises itself as arrogance. But their obsession, their need to diminish you, their constant monitoring of your progress, that's not hatred, that's admiration. They're too fragile to express because you remind them of a version of themselves they abandoned. You remind them of dreams they never chased, risks they never took, fires they let burn out. You don't need to explain yourself to them. You don't need to justify your vision or prove your worth. They already see it. That's why they panicked. That's why they acted first. People never try to dim a light unless they see it shining. They never attack potential unless they feel threatened by its reflection. So let them fear, let them whisper, let them pretend they're above you, while secretly choking on the possibility that they might be left behind. You don't need their approval. You don't need their acceptance. If they had the power to stop your destiny, you wouldn't feel this pull in your chest. You wouldn't feel this fire under your ribs. The chosen aren't chosen because life is easy. They're chosen because life pressures them until they discover who they really are. And one day, those same faces, those same voices, those same trembling hearts that once tried to push you out will try to come closer again, not because you've changed, but because now they finally understand who you always were. They pushed you out thinking they were ending you. Isn't that amusing? As if the universe operates on their approval, as if your destiny is a membership card they get to stamp. They were so sure, so certain that shutting a door meant shutting down your future. They never realized doors are human inventions. Destiny uses windows, cracks, storms, explosions. They thought removing you from their circle would erase your future. But what happens when someone tries to bury a seed? It grows where they can't see, where they can't touch, where they can't interfere. And when it rises, it doesn't ask permission. Being pushed out was never the punishment. It was the protection. You think every room you're kicked out of is a loss. No. Some spaces are too small for who you're becoming. Some tables are too fragile for the weight of your purpose. Some conversations would have clipped your wings instead of sharpening your vision. And the people who shoved you out, they thought they were powerful in that moment. They thought they were in control. Tiny kings sitting on cardboard thrones, believing they just dethroned a giant. They didn't dethrone you. They freed you from their ceiling. Look closely. The ones who force you out never do it from strength. They do it from fear, insecurity, desperation. They worry that if you stay, you'll outgrow them, outshine them, expose the truth. They were never competition. And isn't it funny? They try to push you out quietly, pretending it's nothing personal, pretending they're right, pretending you're insignificant. But deep down, their heart beats a little faster when your name comes up. They avoid looking at you too long because even your potential makes them uncomfortable. That's not rejection, that's admission. They saw something in you they couldn't face in themselves, and in their panic, they tried to rewrite fate, but destiny doesn't panic. Destiny waits. Destiny watches. Destiny knows exactly when to pull the rug from under the feet of those who think they have the power to move chosen people like chess pieces. You are not expelled. You are extracted, removed like a diamond from a pile of stones. And the day will come when the very same hands that pushed you away will tremble at the thought of reaching back for you. Not because you'll punish them, but because they'll realize they never had the right to touch something sacred in the first place. Elevation is always misunderstood at first. You don't rise while being applauded. You rise while being doubted, criticized, excluded. Greatness never arrives with confetti. It arrives with silence. The silence of rooms you no longer fit in. The silence of people who don't know how to talk to you anymore. The silence of the world holding its breath because it senses a shift even before you do. Being pushed out is nothing but the universe whispering up, higher. They think they've sent you backwards. But destiny moves in strange directions. Sometimes rejection is the staircase you never recognized. 20 minutes. Funny how a number can suddenly feel like a ticking heartbeat, isn't it? You've lived years pretending you have time. Time to fix things, time to change, time to get up from your knees and stop begging the world for mercy. And now suddenly everything feels urgent, alarming, like the walls are closing in. And someone up there finally slammed the door and said, "Enough people only wake up when they feel the fire licking at their heels." When someone whispers that everything they took for granted might slip right through their fingers. Oh, now you want to listen? Now you want to move? When the countdown starts, every second sounds like a slap, doesn't it? Every breath feels heavier, like it's carrying the weight of all your excuses, all your tomorrows that never came you. What's funny? People always think doors close because something went wrong. They panic, they cling, they scream at the sky like children who lost their favorite toy. They don't realize sometimes the toy is broken. Sometimes the toy is poison dressed as comfort. Sometimes the door didn't close to trap you. It closed to keep you alive. And isn't that hilarious? How life protects you while you kick and punch against the very thing saving you. You call it bad luck, betrayal, rejection, failure. It whispers evolution, transformation, escape. But most can't hear whispers. They only understand explosions. So here you stand, in a hallway that suddenly got very quiet. Door behind you sealed shut, no turning back. And your first instinct is fear, isn't it? That shaking in your bones, that doubt crawling up your spine. The voice saying, "What now? Why me? What am I supposed to do?" But the truth? You were never meant to stay where you were. You outgrew the room long before the door slammed. You just wouldn't leave willingly. People rarely do, so life nudged you. Gently? No, it pushed you with both hands and a smirk. Because comfort makes cowards, and nothing kills destiny faster than getting used to small spaces. You think the shutting was punishment. It was protection from small dreams, small minds, small versions of you. You were feeding crumbs to giants inside you, and giants don't live on crumbs. They starve quietly until one day they roar, and that roar shakes everything you thought was stable. Suddenly you have no job, no person, no plan B, and you mistake collapse for death when really it's rebirth. Funny how rebirth always looks like ruin first. Beautiful things don't come wrapped in perfection. They come wrapped in shock, discomfort, chaos. That's the language of change. Look around. Every great shift in your life came after something ended. Every victory had a funeral before it. Every level demanded a version of you to die. You think doors close randomly? No, timing is too sharp for coincidence. It's like being pulled out of a burning room while you're still arguing with the fire, insisting it didn't feel that hot. That's how denial works. People stay in flames because they recognize the heat. The cold unknown outside the door scares them more, but the flame doesn't care if you're used to it. It burns anyway, and the moment that door locked, your excuses lost their home. Your comfort evaporated, your illusions cracked like cheap glass. Good, you needed that. Destruction wakes the sleeping. Nothing wakes you like a forced ending. Suddenly you see clarity in places you ignored for years. Suddenly you realize the people you chased were holding you back. Suddenly you remember who you were before compromise sank its claws in. Pressure squeezes truth out of people. When the door shut, your truth started screaming louder than your fear. The world tells you to be grateful for what you had, but sometimes gratitude is just another word for settling. You weren't meant to cling to what was fading. You're meant to walk toward what's calling. And moving on isn't always noble. Sometimes it's messy, loud, ugly. Sometimes it's done with shaking hands and a cracked smile. But movement is movement. Progress doesn't care if you look graceful. It only cares that you don't stay trapped in yesterday. The door didn't close to punish you. It closed to release you, to drag you out of rooms that were shrinking around your potential. To stop you from watering dead gardens and calling it loyalty, to break the spell of familiarity that kept you blind to your own stagnation. You think loss means you weren't enough. No. Loss means the chapter finished reading your character and knew it was time for the next act. So breathe, stand in the hallway long enough to understand, not panic. Doors don't close without meaning. When life removes something, it isn't robbing you, it's replacing you. But replacements don't enter unlocked rooms. They need space. They need silence. They need endings to make room for beginnings. And yes, it feels violent sometimes, unfair, abrupt, but growth rarely asks permission. It arrives with a grin, knocks everything off the table and says, time to evolve. People cling to comfort like it's salvation, like familiarity is some kind of sacred blanket, stitched with safety and meaning. But here's the trick. Comfort lies. It whispers sweet nothings while slowly tightening its grip around your throat. You think stillness means peace. Routine means stability. Predictability means control. When in reality, comfort can be the softest poison ever created. It doesn't kill you quickly. It sedates you, pats your head, and sings lullabies while your dreams suffocate quietly in the corner. And then one day something happens. A door slams. A chapter closes. A no drops like a hammer, and suddenly you're gasping, waking up, blinking in the harsh light of change. That's the moment most people panic. But that moment is not the end. It's the alarm, the warning, the mercy disguised as disruption. Chaos isn't always the enemy. Sometimes chaos is the rescue. Think about it. If everything stayed calm, easy, predictable, you'd sink into lukewarm existence and never notice your potential rotting. You'd mistake comfort for progress and call stagnation maturity. What a joke, right? Life sees you settling, sees you shrinking yourself to fit the walls you built, sees you trading passion for convenience. And it laughs, not to mock you, but to wake you, to nudge you or shove you, depending on how stubborn you are. Because when comfort becomes a cage, chaos becomes the key. Funny thing about transformation. It rarely comes wrapped in gentle packaging. It doesn't knock politely. It storms in, kicks chairs over, smashes your little illusions, and forces you to look at what you've been ignoring. The friendships that were draining you. The environment sucking your ambition dry. The dreams you buried because they felt too loud, too big, too dangerous. You call it loss, but tell me, what's really lost when the things holding you back finally fall away? Comfort convinces you that familiarity is safety, but look closely. Sometimes the familiar is what's limiting you the most. You can't grow in a room built for your past self. People say they fear change, but they don't. They fear discomfort. They fear being seen without the mask of routine. They fear stepping into uncertainty where their excuses can't protect them. Comfort is convenient because it asks nothing from you. But growth? Oh, growth is demanding. It asks you to release, to leap, to trust what you cannot yet see. So when life shakes you, when doors close, when comfort crumbles, that isn't punishment. That is rescue. That is the universe yanking you out of quicksand before you disappear into it forever. And don't pretend you didn't feel it coming. Deep down, long before the door shut, there was a restlessness, a whisper that said, "This isn't it." But comfort convinced you to ignore it, to keep playing small, to stay where you were liked instead of going where you were meant to rise. That whisper doesn't disappear. It grows teeth. It gnaws at you while you pretend everything is fine. And when you don't move, life moves you. It pushes, it closes doors, it strips away illusions until you're forced to face yourself without the pillow of comfort cushioning your denial. What's amusing is how people beg for blessings, but panic when the preparation looks nothing like they imagined. They pray for change, then cling to the habits and people that guarantee they won't change. They ask for growth, then cry when comfort is taken away. They want destiny handed to them like a gift box when destiny is forged through disruption. Comfort doesn't raise warriors, discomfort does. Pressure does, closed doors do. There's something beautifully cruel about the moment comfort ends, a silence that feels like abandonment but is really preparation, a void that feels like loss but is really clearing, a pause that feels like punishment but is really protection. It's almost comical how people think comfort is the safe choice, when sometimes the safest thing is to leave before everything collapses. But humans cling. They hold on to burning bridges and call it loyalty. They hug old versions of themselves as if letting go means dying, but sometimes letting go is the only way to live. So when comfort dissolves and you're pushed into unknown territory, don't curse the shift. Don't panic because the world you built suddenly cracked open. That crack wasn't a failure. It was a doorway you wouldn't open yourself, a forced exit from smallness, a divine shove towards something bigger, louder, sharper. Comfort tried to keep you cozy. Growth refused to let you shrink. And what a blessing that is, even if it arrives with broken edges and trembling hands. Fear. Such a loyal little pet, always sitting right by your feet, wagging its tail, pretending it's keeping you safe. People treat fear like a guard dog, when in reality it's more like a leash. Soft around your neck at first, then tighter and tighter, until one day you realize you are not guarding anything. You're just pacing in circles, convincing yourself you're moving. It's funny how fear dresses itself as logic, as caution, as being smart. But the truth? Most people are not cautious. They're scared. Scared of failing, scared of being seen trying, scared of looking foolish, scared of leaving the predictable cage they've decorated like a palace. They call hesitation wisdom, but it's nothing more than fear wearing a borrowed suit. And here's the real joke. Fear doesn't show up when things are hopeless. No, it shows up when you're close. Right before the shift, right before the breakthrough. Fear isn't the sign that you're in danger. Fear is the sign that you're standing at the edge of your next life, and the old one is screaming to pull you back. You don't get scared when nothing is changing. You get scared when everything is about to. That trembling in your bones, that tightening in your chest, that voice telling you to slow down, to go back, to wait for a sign. That isn't weakness. That's the door creaking open. Fear doesn't show up to stop you, it shows up to test you, but most people fail the test. They think fear means stop. They think uncertainty means turn around. They think discomfort means danger, when really those feelings are the GPS of transformation. Nothing meaningful grows in comfort. Nothing powerful evolves in silence. To grow is to stretch, and stretching hurts. But humans, they worship comfort like a religion. They bow to predictability, cling to routine, treat the unknown like a monster under the bed. They never question why their dreams feel impossible. They only question themselves. That's the tragedy. They never see the bars on the cage because they painted them gold. Fear is clever, too. It doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. Later, just wait. Make sure you're ready. Maybe next month. Oh, that's the sweetest lie fear offers. The illusion of later. Later becomes never. Time slips quietly, like water through fingers, and one day you wake up and realize fear didn't stop you in a dramatic moment. It stopped you every boring day with tiny excuses. You didn't say no to your destiny. You postponed it to death. But here's what fear hates: action. Fear can haunt thoughts, cripple decisions, poison imagination, but it cannot survive movement. Once you step, even with shaking legs, fear loses its grip. It feeds on hesitation. It starves on momentum. People think courage means feeling strong. No, courage often looks pathetic. Shaking hands, dry mouth, heart pounding like war drums. Courage isn't loud. Courage is quiet resistance to the voice that says turn back. And isn't it hilarious how fear lies about outcomes? It paints disasters, humiliation, downfall, as if staying where you are guarantees safety, but staying still is the biggest risk of all. Life punishes stagnation, the same way fire punishes wax. Slow melt, quiet ruin. If fear truly protected, we'd all be thriving in our safe little boxes. But look around. The safest people are often the most restless. The ones who avoided failure carry the deepest regret. They would trade anything to go back and choose fear's opposite, not bravery, but forward motion, even sloppy, messy, uncertain motion. Fear always tells the same story. If you move, you may lose. But it never tells the other side. If you don't move, you will lose. Lose time, lose potential, lose pieces of yourself until you become nothing but a memory of who you might have been. That's the real horror story, not failure, regret. People fear falling, but they should fear staying, because falling teaches, builds, sharpens, staying dulls, staying kills. So when fear climbs into your chest and whispers warnings like a protective ghost, smile back at it, not mockingly, but knowingly, because fear isn't proof you shouldn't move. It's proof the moment matters. It's proof the ground under your feet is shifting, because the universe is rearranging things for you. Fear is the checkpoint before transformation, the final guard at the gate, and the only way past it is forward, step by trembling step, until fear realizes you are not owned by it. You are fueled by hesitation, such a gentle assassin. It never storms in with knives and alarms. It doesn't shout or smash windows. No. Hesitation is polite. It knocks softly. It pulls up a chair. It smiles. It tells you to think a little more, to wait for the right moment, to just be certain first. It feels harmless, almost wise. And that's the trick. The most dangerous thieves don't take everything at once. They take it quietly, slowly, piece by tiny piece. Hesitation doesn't steal your opportunities in one dramatic moment. It steals your life in little delays that feel reasonable. What a sneaky little monster. People like to believe their future is sitting patiently, waiting for them to be ready. They imagine time as this generous, forgiving friend that will always come back tomorrow, next week, next year. They don't realize time has teeth. It bites the ones who treat it casually. One delayed decision, one postponed dream, one moment of waiting just a little longer, and suddenly you look around and the chance is gone. Not because it wasn't meant for you, but because hesitation convinced you you had infinite options, infinite hours, infinite second chances. That lie is delicious and poisonous. Urgency, on the other hand, is wild. It's uncomfortable. It's loud, impulsive, almost impolite. It doesn't care if you're scared or tired or unsure. Urgency doesn't wait for perfect clarity. It moves while clarity forms behind it. People fear urgency because urgency exposes them. It forces action. It makes you choose, and with choice comes risk. What if I mess up, they ask, but here's the real question. What if you don't move, and life moves without you? What if the door that's open now closes forever while you're sitting there rehearsing your brave speech in your head? What if the worst thing isn't falling, but never jumping? Look closely at anyone who built something real. They didn't wait for perfect timing. They didn't sit there polishing their confidence like a trophy. They moved when they were half ready, scared, shaky, unsure. They acted while doubt screamed in their ear, and that's why they made it. Not because they were fearless, but because they didn't worship hesitation. They chose urgency. Even when urgency felt like chaos, they understood something most never do. Hesitation pretends to protect you, but urgency saves you. Urgency burns excuses like gasoline. People love to say, I'll start when I'm ready. Ready? That's laughable. Nobody is ever fully ready. Readiness is not a doorway. It's a result of stepping through the doorway. You don't become ready before you act. You become ready because you acted. Waiting to feel prepared before moving is like waiting to get warm before stepping near the fire. The warmth comes after the step, not before. But hesitation whispers, just wait a little longer. And people believe it, not realizing they're sacrificing destiny for comfort disguised as caution. Let's talk about the graveyard, not the one in the ground, the one inside people. The graveyard of ideas they never tried, talents they never used, courage they never tested. Hesitation buries more dreams than failure ever could. Failure at least gives you scars, lessons, stories. Hesitation gives you nothing but haunting maybes. And believe me, maybe is heavier than any loss. Regret is a ghost that follows you forever, whispering what could have been. Urgency doesn't demand that you rush blindly. It demands that you move while the window is open, that you trust momentum more than comfort, that you value time like it's fragile, because there's something almost tragic about watching someone capable, talented, full of potential, weight themselves into mediocrity. They keep their ideas in their head like delicate glass, afraid to drop them. Meanwhile, someone with half the talent but twice the urgency builds, tries, fails, rises, wins. Not because they were better, but because they acted while the other one hesitated. Effort beats waiting every single day. Motion beats intention. Action beats planning. Always. Life rewards those who move, who dare while others doubt, who jump while others pace. Urgency doesn't mean recklessness. It means honoring the moment instead of worshiping fear. It means seeing opportunity and grabbing it with both hands before hesitation can whisper its beautifully destructive lies. Because life doesn't pause for your hesitation. It doesn't freeze in place until you feel brave. Time walks forward whether you move or not. And if you don't step with it, it leaves you behind, quietly, cruelly, without apology. Sure, hesitating feels safer, but the safest prison is still a prison. Urgency breaks locks, hesitation polishes them, and one day, when the doors are closed and the hour is gone, you'll wish you'd listened to the fire in your chest instead of the comfortable whisper in your head. When life removes someone from your path, people rush to grieve as if they lost treasure, as if the story is ended, as if absence is always tragedy. They romanticize what left, Polish memories, rewrite histories in their heads. Funny, isn't it? The human mind loves to turn loss into worship. But let's strip the illusion. Sometimes the absence isn't loss, it's rescue. Sometimes someone leaving isn't a wound, it's a cure. The universe isn't sentimental. It doesn't care about your attachments, your nostalgia, your wishful thinking. It cares about your destiny, not your comfort. And when somebody's presence begins to rot your growth, life drags them out, whether you release them or not. People think the dangerous ones are the loud enemies, the dramatic betrayals, the obvious villains. No, the dangerous ones are the soft anchors, the ones who seem harmless, the ones who smile while quietly dimming your spark, the ones who clap politely when you win but feel heavier around you every time you rise. The universe sees those things you pretend not to notice, the silent jealousy, the subtle discouragement, the little digs disguised as jokes, the slow poisoning of belief, and it removes them for you, like sweeping glass off the floor before you cut your feet. You may cry over the broom, but the floor becomes safe again. Do you know why some people vanish when you start evolving? They weren't built for the version of you that's emerging. They were companions for chapters you've already outgrown. You don't take every childhood toy into adulthood. Why take every person from one stage into the next? Some were only meant to hold your hand at the beginning, not cheer you at the climax. And if life let them stay, they'd drag you backwards so you'd fit their comfort zone. The universe knows this even when you refuse to see it. So it closes doors, silences numbers, dissolves connections, sometimes with a clean cut, sometimes with a violent tear, but either way it protects your future from the grip of your past. People whisper, why did they leave? What did I do wrong? Oh, the ego hates unexplained exits, but sometimes nothing went wrong. Things went right. Sometimes the break wasn't punishment, it was prevention. Imagine trying to carry a cracked glass bowl filled with water across a marathon. No matter how tightly you hold it, it's going to spill, shatter, and cut you. But if someone snatches it away early, you scream, not realizing they saved your hands from bleeding later. That's what divine subtraction feels like. It looks rude, painful, inconvenient, until enough time passes and you see the disaster you were spared. Look at nature. Trees shed leaves, snakes shed skin, birds push their young from the nest. Growth is not gentle, separation is natural, but humans cling. They grip relationships like lifelines, even when they've turned into chains. Loneliness frightens them more than stagnation. Familiarity seduces them more than evolution. They stay loyal to people who fear their potential. They beg for crumbs from tables they already outgrew. They shrink themselves so others don't feel small. What a tragedy to imprison your future just to avoid discomfort in the present. And here's the bittersweet part. Not everyone removed from your path was bad. Some were good souls, but not good for your calling. Some loved you, but loved the weaker version of you more. Some needed you, but only when you were small enough to carry them. The moment you began to rise, the balance shifted. You don't lose people when you level up. You reveal who is attached to your elevation and who is attached to your old limitations. And sometimes the most loving thing life can do is remove what you refuse to release. You must learn to trust the exits, trust the silence, trust the sudden distance. Not every goodbye needs a villain. Not every closed door needs drama. Some endings are just cosmic timing, cleaning your path, pruning your circle, sharpening your alignment. You cannot walk into destiny weighed down by expired connections, and you don't need to chase or explain or fix what's been divinely redirected. When someone exits, let the universe keep its rhythm, because one day, maybe months from now, maybe years, you'll look back and laugh at what you tried to hold. You'll see the truth so clearly. Some people weren't removed to hurt you, but to make space for those who can stand beside your greatness without trembling, without resenting, without shrinking you to feel tall. And that day, you won't mourn the exit. You'll be grateful for it. You'll whisper, "Thank you for leaving. You made room for everything meant to arrive." Loss. People treat it like a funeral every time. They wrap themselves in grief, whisper tragic lines about endings, act like the universe ripped out their heart on purpose. But loss isn't always the villain. Sometimes loss is the surgeon, cold, steady, necessary. Sometimes it cuts not to kill you, but to save you. And oh, how dramatic humans get when something is taken from them. They forget that holding on too tightly can choke a blessing to death. They forget that clinging to what's dying only makes the rot spread. They think losing something means they weren't worthy of it, but sometimes losing something means it wasn't worthy of who you were becoming. That's the twist no one sees coming. Life has this mischievous way of clearing your path before you even realize what's blocking it. You cry over the door closing, not realizing what stood behind it had already expired. It's like mourning spoiled food in the fridge. You're grieving trash while your future is knocking, asking for room to enter. But humans love old flavors, familiar tastes, predictable meals. They eat the same comfort till it numbs them. And when life sweeps the table clean, they scream like something precious was stolen. No, it was replaced before it could poison you. Loss is not always destruction. Sometimes it's detox. People romanticize pain. They hold on to it like a souvenir, polish it, show it off. They say, "Look what I lost. Look how I suffered." As if suffering grants them meaning. But loss is not a trophy. It's a turning point. It's a shift in gravity. And most people miss the shift because they're too busy staring at the empty space instead of the path ahead. They forget that new chapters don't begin with drum rolls. They begin with silence, confusion, a sting in the chest. They forget that the universe doesn't hand you gifts while your hands are full of yesterday. It forces you to drop what you cling to, no matter how tightly your knuckles lock. You know what's funny? How people demand transformation but whimper when the process starts. They pray for strength, then curse the weights. They ask for clarity, then cry when illusions break. They want growth without loss, rebirth without burial, evolution without shedding the skin they've outgrown. That's not how it works. You can't step into a bigger life wearing old sizes. Life removes the excess first, the people who can't go with you, the habits that sabotage you, the beliefs that strangled your potential, and you think you're being punished. But tell me, how can a prisoner complain when the bars are broken? Only someone who fell in love with captivity would mourn their cage. Loss has a way of stripping ego. It quiets you, it humbles you, it forces you to face yourself without the props you leaned on, and that's where the real shift begins. In the stillness after things fall apart, most people panic at that silence. They rush to fill it with noise, with distractions, with replacements. They rebound from pain like it's fire instead of sitting in it long enough to understand it. But if you can stomach that stillness, if you can study what left without begging for it back, you see truth. You see who you were pretending to be, who you were afraid to be, who you can become now that the dead weight is gone. And here's the part that stings. Sometimes the loss is you. Sometimes you lose an old self you were so comfortable with. You feel naked, stripped, unsettled, and that's terrifying. But it's also liberation disguised as emptiness. The version of you that fit your past does not fit your calling. Losing that version hurts, but carrying it longer hurts more. You don't rise by dragging ghosts. Loss prepares the stage. It clears the audience. It shakes the curtains. It whispers, are you ready to step into who you truly are, or will you cling to who you were? Most people say they want destiny, but worship familiarity. They fear stepping into the unknown more than they fear wasting their life. So loss comes like a thief, not to rob, but to force release, to pry your fingers open when you refuse to unclench them. And someday you look back and realize nothing was taken. Everything was traded for strength, clarity, upgrade, alignment. You don't break from loss. You shape from it. You don't fall apart. You fall into place, and you don't end. You shed time. Now that's a funny little thing everyone pretends to understand. You clutch clocks like they're lifelines. Whisper about someday, talk about tomorrow like it signed a contract to show up. Oh, how beautifully delusional. You walk around as if the world owes you hours, as if you're guaranteed sunsets and second chances. But time isn't a kind parent. It's a quiet thief. It doesn't knock, doesn't warn, doesn't bargain. It just slips through fingers you thought were tight enough, tick by tick, breath by breath. While you stall, postpone, procrastinate, plan like you're immortal, people believe they're running late when truth is, they're already bleeding minutes they can never recover. And the saddest part? Most don't realize they're in the final chapters of their own story until time starts turning the pages by force, not choice. You ever notice how people always say, I'll start tomorrow? Tomorrow, the great fictional land where motivation magically appears, discipline grows like flowers, dreams suddenly become easy. Tomorrow is the grand stage for all the lives that never get lived. People sit in cages built from not yet. They romanticize potential like it's enough on its own. They fantasize about results without ever meeting the grind halfway. And time watches, amused, as you lull yourself with excuses. Because you don't lose your future in one dramatic moment. You lose it minute by minute, habit by habit, delay by delay. One day you look around and realize later has turned into never, and the only thing louder than the ticking clock is regret laughing at you. Humans treat time like currency they can earn back. They bargain with it, just a little more comfort. Now I'll suffer for the dream later. But life doesn't operate on loans. It charges up front. Success demands payment in discipline, sweat, sacrifice, and people try to bargain with laziness. They think time waits because they feel busy inside their heads. They confuse overthinking with planning, dreaming with doing, but time has no sympathy for mind chatter. It rewards those who move, who act, who dare. And the clock doesn't care if you're scared, tired, insecure, confused. It keeps moving anyway while you sit still and call it preparation. Funny thing, you chase distractions like they're salvation. Screens steal your hours, gossip steals your focus, comfort steals your hunger. You waste precious seconds feeding habits that starve your potential, and then you cry about not having enough time, as if time is the criminal here. No, the crime is not urgency, it's your loyalty to delay. You cling to comfort like it's oxygen, forgetting comfort is the quietest killer. It doesn't destroy you suddenly, it dissolves you gently. A little compromise here, a little delay there, and suddenly you wake up in a life you never intended to settle for. People drown not in oceans, but in minutes they never valued, and when time finally raises its voice, a crisis, a loss, a scare, a shock, suddenly you feel alive. Suddenly urgency appears, clarity arrives, fire sparks. That's the cruel comedy of existence. You only value time when you sense it's slipping. The heart beats louder when danger whispers. Deadlines awaken discipline. Mortality awakens meaning. If urgency can change you in crisis, imagine what it could do if you invited it before chaos forced its hand. Most wait to value breath until they can't catch it. They worship routine until it becomes a coffin. But here's the secret. No one wants to face. The life you want doesn't hide behind fate or luck. It hides behind urgency, behind the uncomfortable choice, the disciplined hour, the action you avoid. Time rewards action, like gravity rewards falling. Consistently, without exception. Those who move early build what others beg for later. Those who chase minutes instead of waiting for moods bend destiny in their direction. The clock is not your enemy, it's your mirror. It reveals what you prioritize, not what you pretend to value. You think you have time because you feel alive. But feeling alive is not evidence of time. It's the illusion of it. One day the clock won't be background noise, it'll be the only sound you hear. You'll rewind your memory and see every moment you could have pushed, tried, dared, and nothing haunts louder than the hours you wasted willingly. Urgency isn't